Reporter Sarah Fryer and Eric Newcomer are here, along with our billionaires reporter Tom Metcalf, to tie in Snapchat in just a moment. So we've come a long way in just a week. You know, at the beginning of the week, you have Mark Zuckerberg denying that Facebook had anything to do with the outcome. At the end of the week, you had President Obama talking about fake news running rampant on the site. Sarah, is there any indication from what you're hearing from within Facebook that Mark Zuckerberg is changing his mind?
I think that Zuckerberg is ultimately going to want to do what's best for the user experience. And in the past, they've actually polled their users, and the users don't like being misled by what they see on Facebook. So even if it's 1% of the news that's fake, and some people suggest it might be more than that, people don't want that, and it actually doesn't create a brand safe environment for Facebook. So internally, yes, there are people who are telling Zuckerberg, you need to take more responsibility for this. I think Zuckerberg, I haven't heard about his opinions recently, but he seems to be holding fast to the notion that he's not responsible in public.
Yeah, there are reports that employees within the organization are horrified and going rogue.
Protesting, and, having groups where they... Yeah, and people have talked to me too, current and former employees, about ways that they think of solving this problem that they just really wish could be implemented in a stricter way. And Facebook has tried to solve the fake news problem in the past. What's even more troubling right now is there's a lot more than just fake news. It's like propaganda sites that are getting spread. And
I would sort of quibble with him talking about the quantity of news versus what the fake news actually is. When you have a story about the Pope endorsing Donald Trump that is completely untrue and has a major impact on the news cycle, at least for a time, that's a very important 1%, isn't it?
And 1% on Facebook's a ton of content.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Right? I mean, a lot of Facebook isn't news. So if you're, not to sort of overly take Mark Zuckerberg overly literally here, but 1% would be a ton when you think about sort of the amount of content. And if a news organization had 1% of its content being fake, that would be super troubling.
No news organization would stand for that.
That was the point made by a former employee this week. Is just, Facebook has become such a data-based organization, but you have to think about things sort of beyond the data and think about their impact. Like, even if 1% might be fine for an engineering error, but for the information that the public gets about a critical election.
And I think
Eric, you wrote the column, our Bloomberg Tech column this week, where you took this issue on, and you had an interesting take where you said, bring back Milo. And so Milo is Milo Yiannopoulos, the Breitbart writer who was banned from Twitter. Yeah. Twitter has now gone on to ban other accounts tied to white supremacy. You say that's actually the wrong approach.
Yeah, I was trying to sort of lay out a set of principles and say, Twitter and Facebook don't have to be that different. They should let anybody publish on the platform. The problem with people like Milo is that they're creating this really toxic experience. So what they need to do is find ways to protect the user, say, make it easier to block people, and sort of find an experience that they find enjoyable. So on the one hand, let people publish, but on the other hand, give users more control over what they see. Facebook does a great job of that because they curate everything. Twitter does a terrible job of that because it's a totally sort of Wild West.
Eric, I wanna just
push back. What, you disagree?
So
let's do it.
These social networks are not government organizations. They're not beholden to free speech regulations, right? These are companies with profit models, and in Twitter, in its case, it's not profitable, and they need to create a brand safe environment in order to attract advertisers. It's the same reason like Facebook doesn't allow pictures of breastfeeding, right? It's not because breastfeeding is bad, it's because they don't, and some people really disagree with that, but it's because they want to create an environment where advertisers want to spend money to put their messages next to this stuff.
And I recognize I have some subjective views here, but what I would say, for them, I'd say that's where their curated environments happen, right? So for Facebook, it's the feed where they're really calculating what should appear. Meanwhile, on your own wall, you should be a little freer to express what you want because it's just sort of a chronological account of everything you want there.
So here's the thing. We've talked to a number of different investors. We talked to the CEO of Reddit in the aftermath of the election, and almost universally, they're saying that Facebook shouldn't be having more human involvement. The idea is that perhaps human editors or human curators, more human intervention could have prevented things like this, which runs counter to Mark's claim that we're a tech company, we are not a media company.
I think either way, however they want to solve it, it's going to be a human solution, right? These algorithms are built by people. Their preferences are fundamentally driven by the values and principles of their employees. So to say, oh, should people solve it or should algorithms solve it? It's the same people. It's just when they get off the train. They're building the tracks. It's when they let the decision get made by a machine.